Hello Whisky fans, this is an exciting one. Happy days, we've got a review of the first general release from Ardnahoe. So Ardnahoe is the new distillery out on Islay, and they released their first whisky last year now, which was Ardnahoe 5-year-old inaugural release. And I reviewed that. Go and have a look at my review of that if you haven't done already. It's great stuff. If you can still find it at RRP, it's a good one. But today we'll be looking at this one, which replaces, in a way, the inaugural release. This one is a large batch, core range, general release. Should hopefully be available to most of you. It is, in theory, a similar thing to the inaugural release, but it's intended to be made on a little bit of a larger scale, a little bit more of a sustainable recipe perhaps, and to be something that more people can get just as a general decent drinking whisky. So the box for the inaugural was all black. This time it's all white, but apart from that, very similar design. This one is called Ardnahoe Infinite Loch, which is named after a loch in that area, which supposedly nobody knows how deep it is. Hence, Infinite Loch. So let's get this one out of the box. I'll show you a close-up of the box so you can see it in case you live somewhere where you can't easily go and see it in person. That way, Ardnahoe. Made by the Loch side, as most Islay whisky is. Even Kilhoman, which I think is just about the most inland Islay whisky, is still pretty close to the sea. It's nice that they do this on the side of the box, because it's very much that kind of trademark Islay distillery name on the Loch side front of the warehouse, isn't it? The bottle is again very much the same as what we get on the inaugural release. Same Ardnahoe logo, very similar label. It is bottled at a fantastic strength of 50% ABV. We've got a guarantee on the front that it has no artificial colouring and no chill filtration. It's matured in specially selected oak casks. It's a little bit of a marketing term there, because of course it is. And I don't know if it actually says it on the box or the tube. Yeah, it says it on the back of the box. Matured in a combination of ex-bourbon and ex-Oloroso sherry casks. So I believe that's exactly the same cask recipe in theory as the inaugural release, although the proportions of the bourbon and sherry casks it doesn't say. I will say that the colour of this is a little bit lighter than the inaugural release, so it's probably justified that we might expect to see perhaps some more bourbon casks in this, and perhaps a little bit more of an economical and sustainable production, because we have to remember that sherry casks are ridiculously expensive now. They have been for lots of years, and they perhaps wouldn't want to put as many of those Oloroso casks into the vatting as they did with that inaugural release where they're trying to impress us. But we'll see. There is no age statement on this one. Obviously, with the inaugural release, we were told that it's 5 years old, so we can probably safely assume that it's going to be less than 5, but obviously more than 3. So I would expect and would quite believe that this is probably 4 to 5 years old. Let's get some in the glass and see what the good people at Ardnahoe have done for us. Beautiful natural colour, even though this has had Oloroso sherry casks in it. At least one in the vatting anyway. It's still that wonderful, natural, palish looking colour. Ardnahoe Infinite Loch on the nose. Sweet lemon. Lemon and icing sugar and a little bit of lemongrass, a little bit of a spicy lemon, as well as some good coastal minerality. Really quite mineral. Gravel in the rain. Slightly salty. Toasted oak. I think that lemon and coastal and toasted oak notes all added together. I think that this Ardnahoe Infinite Loch, it reminds me a little bit of an Ardnahoe. Also a little bit similar to like a very well presented Talisker or possibly a Springbank 10. Slightly doughy on the nose. There is a little bit of youth to this, a little bit of doughy oak, and a touch of not immaturity, but a fresh, supple youthfulness. But the malted barley is always there, and when you give it a little bit of time in the glass to open up, that maltiness really comes out. That maltiness really mixing beautifully with the oak, which again really reminds me of Ardnahoe. And the peat shows too. Lots of tarred rope and beech bonfire, really raw and dirty and slightly industrial, slightly fumy peat. I think that the rawness and the dirtiness of that peat, it's almost a Lagavulin or a Kalila style peat, but nested in that like a wonderful, gentle Highland Park style bourbon matured maltiness. Great complexity, great development, wonderful nose. Let's see how it tastes. Again, quite salty and maritime. And I said that the inaugural release was quite Bowmore-ish, the house style, or the flavour profile of the inaugural release was very similar to the house style of Bowmore. And a note that I always get on Bowmore is cough sweets, and I'm getting a little bit of that in this as well. Cough sweets and a medicinal menthol note, and a little bit of a peat fire, really nice, warming, peppery, cough sweet peat. Spicy oak, really nice spicy oak note on this. Really reminds me of that lovely, dense, slightly spicy oak that you get on an Ardnahoe, as well as some salted licorice, but just really bold, really flavoursome, just honest, quality, well-made whiskey. Let's have one more sip and look at the finish. On the finish, increasingly medicinal in that peatiness, more of those cough sweet notes, like cough candies, a growing sense of that dry oakiness, a little bit of a salmiak, salted licorice flavour, as well as some really nice herbal notes. It's just a real honest, young, but flavour-based and well-made single malt. I do think that this Ardnahoe Infinite Loch is definitely different to the inaugural release. I don't think that they've done a bait and switch on us. I don't think that the quality is any less with this. But what I'm noticing is that there is noticeably less sherry influence in this Infinite Loch than what we got on the inaugural release, which really makes sense as this is a more affordable whiskey. I paid about £55 for this full price, which is quite a lot less than the inaugural release that some people complained a little bit on the price of. But I think that £55 for this stuff, for a top quality 50% ABV Islay malt, I don't find it too far off the mark. Maybe a little bit on the expensive side, but no more than £5. I'm happy to pay a little bit extra for quality, and I'm also happy to pay a little bit extra for a good ABV as well. This stuff is still young, of course it is, it goes without saying, but it's not problematic. I think that they've been very wise with their casks and their maturations, and this is a finished product. I think that it's mature enough, it's ready. I think that the youth makes it nice and punchy and presents the peat really well. It is not by any means a half-finished product. And regarding that peat and how present and well presented it is in the flavour profile, I think that the extent of the peat in this may actually be a little bit surprising if you're coming from the more gentle and more sherried inaugural release. I'd say that this Ardnahoe Infinite Loch, I'd say it's on par with Ardnamurchan, like the AD and the recent cask strength releases in terms of maturity. And I think with those coastal notes and the lemon and spicy peat and spicy oak, it's not too far off in the house style as well. This is, Ardnahoe is, it's authentic, quality, honestly made, honestly presented whiskey, matured in quality casks by people that care. If you remember back to my review of Ardnahoe Inaugural, I said that that bottle was a serious threat and challenger to Bowmore because it has that sort of sweet and spicy peat, cough candy, sherry and bourbon matured Islay profile, which is really very similar to what Bowmore tried to do, although obviously Bowmore don't give a crap, so they don't bottle things properly. They don't give us proper ABVs. I'm going to extend the challenge from Ardnahoe and say that this style with a little bit more bourbon in the mix, it's a real threat to replace the lower core range of Highland Park. I think that this, having a little bit less sherry, leaning a little heavier towards the bourbon casks and the spicy peat, moves it in a little bit of a Highland Park direction. Except again that with this one, it's a craft presented malt that Highland Park just refused to give us. I think that the existence of this at £55 and 50% ABV, it probably makes Highland Park 10 and 12 redundant now, and probably Highland Park cask strength as well. It's definitely much more balanced and mature than Highland Park cask strength, and it's just generally more intensely flavoured than all of the other reasonably priced Highland Parks. If you do live somewhere, or perhaps on the secondary you've seen something, and you're able to still buy that inaugural release from Ardnahoe, I do think that the inaugural has more sherry, more maturity, and at a push I would say that it is just a little bit better. Although I think that on the nose and the finish it's very, very close. I think that the Infinite Loch that we've got here, it has a touch more peat and a little bit more raw power, but it's also got the benefit of being much more affordable and much more available. So if you can still get the inaugural release at a similar price to this, by all means give that one a go, because I think that it's really, really good. But if, like the rest of us mere mortals, that ship has sailed and this is all you've got, then you're not going to be disappointed. Wrapping things up, we do have to have a little comment on prices. As I said before, a lot of people had a little whinge about the Ardnahoe inaugural release being a little bit expensive for a 5-year-old whiskey. Interestingly, I think that a lot of those people that are complaining about the price probably hadn't tasted it, and a few of those people that did taste it then kind of admitted that it's kind of worth it because you're getting that extra quality. Controversial opinion from myself here though, I don't actually think that inaugural releases or milestone releases like Kilchoman 16-year-old and the English Whisky Company 16-year-old are actually overpriced. And I base that on the fact that these milestone releases and these inaugural releases, they're not necessarily drinking whiskey. They're not really even whiskey. They're more collectibles. And yes, they're collectibles that some of us whiskey enthusiasts decide to drink. But I think that with these inaugural releases, they kind of have the inaugural and milestone releases. I think they're kind of justified in being at least a little bit expensive. Of course, that doesn't mean that I'll buy it, but that doesn't necessarily matter, providing that there's a reasonably priced general release close behind. And like the Kingsbarns Ducat, where it's a widely available and very affordable general release, I think that this stuff at £55, I think that this really puts to bed all of those concerns that people had, that they were just selling incredibly overpriced 3-year-old whiskey. This stuff is certainly much more affordable than the inaugural release, and while it's different, I still think that the quality is there. So let me know what you think about this one if you've had it, and how you think it compares to the inaugural release, and what you think about the price of this. Because we have to remember that this stuff at £55, it's cheaper than a Lagavulin 16, and I think that the flavours you get from this are better. And the price of this is not that far away from a lot of the other core ranges that we're getting from Islay now. When you consider that the presentation of this and the casks and flavours that you get from this is so much better, it really balances out a lot of the price differential. I think so anyway. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Cheers.